most of the talk I've heard in the past few days regarding Freminet was about how it was unique compared to the physical DPS we got before in Genshin, thanks to how he makes use of the Shatter elemental reaction to build up his own damage. Specifically, this comes from a passive of his that increases the damage dealt by his main way of attacking if he's shattered an opponent within the last 5 seconds. While this technically ties Freminet to the Shatter elemental reaction, I want people to focus on the fact that this doesn't mean he's a Shatter damage dealer. In fact, there is nothing in his kit that directly increases the damage dealt by Shatter itself, and effectively, it's more like he needs to Shatter for his pretty standard physical damage dealing kit to be up to par with what other physical characters like Eula can do. By default, this has a few ramifications for him, team building and flexibility wise, but we'll get to this later. For the most part, Freminet has a pretty coherent kit. His main selling point is his elemental skill, which turns his normal attacks into different attacks that have higher damage potential, and the rest of his kit almost completely revolves around making that skill better. As a baseline, once he's entered that skill mode, his normal attacks will start dealing a mix of cryo and physical damage, with the 5th attack being his most important one as it's a big chunk of physical damage. Truthfully, cryo damage isn't that good for him, since you're going to build him with artifacts that buff his physical damage output first and foremost. Luckily, his elemental burst provides him with a way to just skip through some of his cryo damage dealing normal attacks, and get to the last physical hit faster. In fact, these attacks I talked about before work in the form of levels. Each normal attack constitutes a separate level, and using it will allow him to go up a level and ultimately reach the big chunk of physical damage hit with the final attack. The burst allows him to bypass part of this process, since it will make each of his normal attack upgrade him by 2 levels at once, meaning you just need 2 normal attacks to reach the final level. Moreover, the burst decreases his elemental skill cooldown by a big enough amount that he'll be able to alternate 3 normal attacks and his skill perpetually during its duration, so he can maintain his uptime pretty reliably during his damage window. 5 out of his 6 Constellations buff these upgraded normal attacks, and overall a Constellation 6 Freminet is 50% stronger than a Constellation 0 one. His constellations are pretty evenly strong, but the noteworthy ones are his Constellation 6, which provides him with critical damage buffs when he procs Frozen, Shatter or Superconduct reactions up to 3 times, and his Constellation 2, which gives a pretty sizable energy refund when he uses his skill, allowing him to be used smoothly without a second cryo on the team. So, about the team and flexibility ramifications I talked about earlier, since Freminet benefits from his Shatter-related buffs in a pretty significant way, pairing him with a Hydro character is pretty instrumental. Luckily for him, a character like Eula entered physical teams a long time ago, purely thanks to how strong she is as a neutral character in a team. The team structures I have in mind for him are him, Eula, Fischl and one between Bennett, Mika and Zhongli in the flex slot. In my calculations, Bennett has performed the best until Mika gets his Constellation 6. In this team structure, Freminet's numbers look in line with what other physical carries like Eula can do at a free-to-play level, but there are a few underlying issues. Compared to other physical units, he is more limited team building-wise, since he will always need a Hydro unit on the team, while he doesn't necessarily need the team flexibility someone like Eula has, since he doesn't have the same energy issues to accommodate. Tying him to Shatter in such a way is an objective limit in some situations, like against bosses, since they're opponents that can't be frozen. Secondarily, his weapon options aren't looking that great at a budget level. The reason is that several of the good 4-star claimers we've gotten in the past focus on increasing burst damage. For example, Akumaru is an exceptional 4-star option for Eula, which Freminet doesn't have access to. There is Serpent Spine, but keeping its effects active without a shielder is unreliable, and since Zhongli is a damage loss for him compared to Bennett or Mika Constellation 6, Spine's advantages aren't felt compared to these other compositions. Funnily enough, excluding the new Battle Pass weapon, this makes the good old prototype Arcake his best free-to-play option. On the other hand, the situation is just fine for him if you have any of the good 5-star claimers. I'm done for today. Overall, Freminet probably won't shake the physical meta, as his numbers don't look too impressive, and honestly the shatter mechanic in his kit arguably just kinda limits him rather than making him particularly unique. I would consider him a pretty average release as far as 4 stars go, which isn't bad, but maybe not what the people that were hoping for a physical overhaul were expecting. See you in the next video.